The last time I saw him, he looked pretty bad. He had on a dirty T-shirt and his stomach was all swollen and he hadn't shaved in several days. His teeth looked awful. All the drapes were closed and it was real dark inside, but I could see big stacks of $100 bills everywhere. Stacks and stacks and stacks, just thousands of dollars piled up on all the furniture. He had on one of those shoulder holsters, and God, I hate those nasty things. You know how scary looking they are. And I told him to take it off and put it somewhere way up high so I didn't have to look at it. And he did. But he put the gun out on the supper table. None of this money's mine, he said, and they'll kill me if I lose a dime of it. I noticed a little plaster bust of Jesus on the piano. I hadn't seen him in 3 years, so when I called and just suggested that we go somewhere for a drink, well, he told me his ex-wife would be over in a minute. So why didn't I just come on over to his place? He said she came over there all the time. But he must have been lying because it turned out that she didn't want to have anything to do with him. She told me later that she'd ask him to get her a good job in Washington, which she knew he could do. But he wouldn't do it because he didn't want her to leave town. He was still trying hard to get back with her. He'd even moved just 2 blocks away from her apartment. Anyway, after he had hung up talking to me, he must have called her and said that I'd called and was coming over to see him. Like, trying to use me to make her jealous or something. But also just using me to get her over to his place because we hadn't seen each other, in a long time either. And she did. She came over, but it was pretty tense. Main thing I remember was the dark room with all those piles of money and that holster and that little Jesus. It's all about as corny as a country song, I guess, but it made me cry. Later, I heard he was running this club, some ex-associate of Jack Ruby, some little place called the Night Owl, and he was sharing rent on his house with some newsboy, this older guy who threw the paper and dealing dope on the side. But I never saw him again. After he died, his mother told me he had this real affinity for divine statuary, but I can't tell you much about him anymore. I never knew what he actually did. I only know that he suffered, and that he probably blamed me at the end. He was in some kind of politics, and he's probably a gangster, though he couldn't have been nearly as good at it as he must have wished. He was just too sick. I'll tell you one thing, though. He'll always be in my heart. Always. As sure as I was in his blood.
Events exist temporarily, and images take place. Memory is carried away to different directions through the mind as hallucination. Hallucination dissolves across the passage of years into history. Stories are told, songs are sung. Hearts become rooms set aside, and people begin.
About 3 months after the funeral, I got this bizarre letter from his second wife. No return, no postmark or anything. Here's what she wrote. I've tried all the moisturizers, all the cream rinse. I've bought $200 shoes and seemed gay. I've been through it all, and with a Germanic heritage. There isn't a soul left I can confide in. Music has played a precise role in the hell of my timing. I've been married 3 times, twice in Mexican towns. My favorite relationships have been with small animals. I've dreamed of childhood and touched money at night. This cannot be taken from me. I've remained invisible and believed in fate. Christ is my lover boy, and I have tasted the clods of honey in his blood. My soul is tuned to the midnight choir.
He exits straight up.